So I want to create a variable to store a particular character's name. So a name is just a word, it's just letters, so I'm going to use a string variable. And let's call this variable character name. Now I don't know what name they're going to choose, so I'm going to leave this empty. Now remember, this is what we've created. This is your real life example. We've created a box that's ready to store a name, but I don't particularly know what name they're going to choose, so it is an empty box. So this is an empty variable. There's nothing in it yet. So how do I get the name? How do I get this desired name from the user? Well, on my form, if you ever want to get information from the user, you're pretty much almost always going to use a text box. A text box is a lovely tool because it lets the user type in anything they want and send it your way. In this particular example, they're going to type in the name of their character. So maybe I could give them some further instruction. I could say, this is just a label, and I'm going to say, enter your character's name. And they're going to put their name in this text box, and they're going to use a button to send that information to me. So they'll type the name, and they'll press this create button. Now, just to make your lives a little easier, let's zoom this font up. It's a little hard to see right now. Good. So we've worked with labels and buttons. We haven't worked with text boxes. Now text boxes, they have a prefix that you're going to want to use. You're going to say TXB. So every text box should start with TXB. And then what is this text box used for? Well, it's used to get the name of my character. I'm just going to go, let's go character name. Ta-da, just like that. So let's see how this works. When I run my program, the user is very clearly prompted to enter their character's name, and they can type whatever they want in the text box. Just as mentioned in the previous video, there is an infinite amount of names that they could choose from. So in the case that I wanted to name my character Bob and click the create button, I need to store this information. So how do we write code to store Bob inside this variable we created? Well, let's take a look. When I hit the create button, I need to store the information that was in this text box. So we need to basically put Bob inside this box. So how do we do that? Well, anytime I want to set a value to a variable, I use the name of the variable, right? Character name. And I set what it's equal to. So I'm giving it a value. I'm giving it something to store. And the thing I want to store is inside this text box. So I'm going to use the name of the text box. Now, most people, well, if you just did this for the first time, you would stop here. But remember, I have to specify which property of this text box I want to store. Am I storing the color of this text box? Am I storing the size of this text box? No, I'm storing whatever text was typed inside of it. So I almost always have to make sure that I reference the .text property of this text box. And that's all it is. It just takes one line of code. You have now successfully stored that information inside this variable. So when I choose my name to be Bob and I press the create button, Bob is now being stored inside this box, inside this variable. Now, why did we do all of this? What is the point of all this? Well, now when I'm creating code, if I ever want to create code that uses the character's name, I don't type in Bob. I find the variable, I use the variable that's storing that information. So let's just finish this off with another label. I'm going to erase the text of this label, and I'm going to change the name to output. So watch how we use variables. When I press the create button, I am storing the name that they have given me, and I'm going to change the text of the label. And I'm going to say, your character's name is. Now I can't put Bob in here. I don't know their name is Bob. It could have been Joe. It could have been Jack. So I have to stop right here. Your character's name is. I don't know what their name is, but I'm going to attach the variable onto that text. I'm going to attach this variable because I will see the value of this variable. I will see the information that this variable is storing. So when I say your character's name is, and I attach the variable name, whatever name they choose will pop up here. So when I put Bob and I click the button, I'm storing Bob in the variable, and then I'm also showing the variable's value, which is right here, Bob. And the beauty of that is this solves the solution for any name that they choose. So they could have went with Jack, and all of a sudden the variable has changed to be storing Jack. We could store absolute garbage, and once again we get the value returned to us. So that's the very simplest sense of how variables work and how you can show the value of the variable, what information that variable is storing.